Odds is a short story by Karen Travis that appeared in issue number 87 of the Star Wars Insider magazine in April of 2006. Featuring illustrations by Robert Hendrickson, it's set a couple of months after the second book in the Republic Commando series, 000, and features Atin of Omega Squad as well as two of the Null ARC troopers, Prudy and Muriel. And as with the previous Republic Commando short story, this was included at the end of book number 3, True Colors, although again, as with that story, I wish they'd put it at the beginning because it's set before True Colors begins. So first, a brief summary. While Atin of Omega Squad and Prudy, the Null ARC Trooper, are off sabotaging a Separatist droid factory, another Null ARC Trooper, Muriel, is on Kamino trying to download essential information that will aid Kal Skirata in his hunt to track down the traitorous Kamino scientist Ko Sai. So first, the good. The one thing I really appreciate about these short stories is how Travis takes the opportunity to highlight members of Omega Squad that we haven't really spent much time with yet in the novels. In the previous short story, Omega Squad Targets, that was Phi, who then went on to be a viewpoint character in the 000 novel. Here, it's Atin. Atin is more reserved than the other guys in Omega Squad, and the previous book had him coming into conflict with his former sergeant, Val. So I very much appreciate getting to have Atin's viewpoint here, that he's cautious, he's interested in these missions that Prudy is carrying out, but he's also trying to figure out how to make sense of it all and how this all adds up to what's happening in the war. We're introduced to Prudy as well, who was not one of the Nulls that we met in the previous novel. He's been going around consistently sabotaging these Separatist factories, but in a subtle way. You don't want to outright blow it up. It's better for them to keep cranking out droids, even if these droids are defective and easier to defeat. We also got to jump into Muriel's viewpoint for a little bit. We briefly met Muriel in 000. He helped with the conclusion of that Coruscant terror cell investigation. And here he's back on Kamino, he's pretending to be just a normal trooper, while he downloads classified information that the Kaminoans definitely do not want troopers to get their hands on. His viewpoint didn't sound significantly different from Ordo's to me, who we met and then got to see his POV in 000, but that probably makes sense because they were all raised together, they were all trained together. They're all the same genetic tinkering starting point. So even if they're off doing different things, they went through the same experiences, and it makes sense that they would be very similar, that they would have a lot of hatred towards the Kaminoans, since they were willing to kill them and write them off as a failed experiment, and that they carry out things for Kal Skirata because of how he saved them and how he raised them. I also like the idea of people starting to dig into the details of the Clone Wars and being like, wait a minute, what's really going on? Like, what's really happening here? Even if the execution of it is gonna have to carry over into the meh section. First, on the meh front, it's just that the previous short story, Omega Squad Targets, was much more action-filled than this one is. This one is all about, ooh, we're sneaking into places, we're getting information, and then we're sneaking back out. The really only overt action scene is when Prudy and Atin fire on a Separatist ship because they still need to uphold their cover, but again, it's not the, like, dealing with a hostage situation like we had in the first story. But my bigger meh is just how Travis chose to address some number issues that had popped up in previous stories. It's really hard to get a handle on the number of clone troopers that exist, because basically no one came out and said there were exactly this number. And even when you watch Attack of the Clones, how you interpret the information given in that movie varies from person to person. They say, oh, we have 200,000 units ready and 1 million more waiting. So that could be 1.2 million troopers, or units could be like platoons, groups of men, in which case, you know, the number could vary anywhere from like 1 million to millions and millions of millions. Odds gives us a precise number, which is 3 million troopers. And right away I was like, that is still not a lot if there are battles happening all across the galaxy. And even taking into account that maybe the clone troopers are just the elite forces and there's a lot of volunteers like we saw in Jedi Trial fighting in the Clone Wars, that just doesn't seem like a lot to cover the whole galaxy. And in fact, some of the other books in the multimedia Clone Wars projects gave numbers that further complicate that, like the Cestus Deception said that 1 million clones had already died, and you're like, oh, okay, that's big. So right away, getting a number of there's 3 million clone troops out there, and we can't find records for the Senate ordering more to be made, I'm like, I don't know if I buy 3 million. That just seems a little small. And part of that is within the Republic Commando series, we don't see much instances of conscripted forces or volunteer forces. We see them training like the locals of the planet, but we don't see other army people that are not clones for the most part. But the bigger issue I have with Odds numbers is that when Atin and Prudy are hacking into this Separatist droid factory, they say, oh, we can look at the numbers here and it only produced 1 million droids in a year. So Republic intelligence is wrong, and they don't have quadrillions of droids, there's much, much less of them. And I was like, okay, but I feel like other things have said that there were quadrillions of droids. So again, like, I'm not sure I buy that number. That number seems very small for what's been presented through the Clone Wars. And I think part of it is Travis trying to set up, like, people slowly come to the realization that this is all a big setup, that someone is pulling the strings on this war, and the characters just can't figure out why yet. And we, as the reader, know the person pulling the strings is Palpatine in his role as a Sith Lord. So I like that characters are starting to uncover things. It just bothered me that what they were uncovering didn't really seem to fit with any of the figures and statistics that have been given in really any of the other stories out there. I think, too, Odds presents the Clone Wars as, oh, it's just a bunch of little conflicts, and if we just got all our forces together and attacked the Separatist world, then it'd be over in a jiffy, but Palpatine has told the Jedi, oh no, we can't do that yet, and so there's something fishy at play. Whereas my concept of the Clone Wars was always that there were battles ensuing on hundreds and thousands of worlds across the galaxy, and some of them were local conflicts that spilled over into the Clone Wars, like what happened in Shatterpoint, but other ones were big, huge conflicts, and I feel like this is sort of minimizing that sense of scale that I think we're meant to get from the Clone Wars, making it smaller and more just little local things than I really think it's meant to be. So in short, Odds gave us an opportunity to hop into another member of Omega Squad's head, in this case Atin, and get to see a little bit of what the Republic is doing to countermand the Separatists by sabotaging their droids, at the same time that Sergeant Kal Skirata has other things going on, that he doesn't really care about the Republic, he cares about the safety of his men, and he's gonna hunt down this formerly Kaminoan, then formerly Separatist, now on the run scientist, because he wants to solve that aging issue. My issue, though, with Odds is just that the numbers really don't add up The more you think about them, the more you're like, wait, but, So it does have an odor of retconning about it, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. Still, if you're interested in checking odds out and you don't have a copy of True Colors that has it in the back, I will put a link to a scanned PDF of the short story down in the description box so you can check it out for yourself. So next time I'm going to be reading the third book in the Republic Commando series, True Colors by Karen Traviss.